Well, traditionally the EU has actually been pretty conservation-led when it comes to whale protection, and in fact in EU law the EU has a very strong mandate for strict protection of cetaceans. We have some incredible directives in Europe which mean countries have to protect whales and dolphins. Now when it comes to the IWC, Denmark has a responsibility to Greenland, and it makes the case for when it wants to take more whales. Denmark is also sympathetic to the issue of commercial whaling with its neighbours like Norway, and sympathetic to countries like Iceland. The EU traditionally isn't a signatory to the International Convention of Regulation of Whaling, attends IWC meetings, but countries attend and vote as countries. They have a sovereign right to represent the people who have elected them. The EU has been exploring its role in terms of representing all of those countries. And on foreign affairs, on trade issues, the EU has what's called a thing called sole competency. It is the body that represents all of those countries as a whole. In 2008, in an attempt to try and bring structure to the way that the EU is working, it maybe naively, it created what was called a common position. And the common position came out of the Council of Ministers, i.e. some elected body, to try and say this is how we're going to approach whaling and the IWC over the next 3 years. And we're into the second year at the moment. We will be seeing it through into 2011. Unfortunately, there has been an interpretation by a bureaucrat somewhere within the system of Council legal services, which has said that the EU has to come together under a thing called loyal cooperation. They have to discuss an issue like Greenland or the deal for commercial whaling before they attend the IWC meeting, and they're supposed to arrive at a common position. They are supposed to, by consensus, have reached a position to either support or reject. Unfortunately, there's a little twist to the tail, and what Council Legal Services have also added is, if you cannot reach consensus, you must abstain on any vote. Now, of course, for Denmark, if the EU abstains on the Greenland vote, and you have to remember the 25 members of the EU who are also IWC members, some 88 in total, represent a huge bloc. If they abstain, it affects the voting, so it's highly likely that those who are in favour of both Greenland and commercial whaling can get those proposals passed. The EU has now created a procedural bloc which is actually hamstringing the whole of the EU. And we've actually seen this issue now spill out into CITES meeting, where on issues like bluefin tuna, there was no consensus in the EU, and they were instructed to abstain. Is this what the EU stands for? The strength of the EU has been some remarkable environmental conventions and directives, and really moved forward the debate on the environment. And yet here we see a procedural bureaucratic system which has put a block in place which actually will stop and emasculate the EU in all environmental treaties from this moment on. We're saying this cannot be. We are challenging this. We know there are countries that want to challenge this. We need countries to be able to stand up for the average European citizen. And we know that the vast majority of European citizens want to see the protection of whales. And that's what we'll fight for, and that's what we'll stand by.